Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you're across this great wide world of ours today. I'm going to do a little bit of going. Normally, I do a video concerning, some kind of positive vibe or whatever. But I did one last week about dogs and cats, and I want to extend this a little bit more this week about pet ownership. And I was talking to family members today, and I was talking about somebody's talking to me about my videos, and I had a couple of people talk to me yesterday as well concerning, about pet ownership. And the point that I make about it is that certain people fantasize about being a pet owner, and when they realize, I'm saying they watch videos or something, or they see this cute puppy on a YouTube or on a commercial, and they say, "Oh, I can get a dog." Well, what I tell people, when I was talking to a friend of mine, they were over and we were discussing this, is that when you make that commitment to a pet, you have to take into account factors such as if you're, like, for instance, old, like in the 80s, and well, I'm going to get a pet, chances are that pet is going to outlive you. So you have to take into things like age, geographics, what type of dog or cat. Is it something, or do you live in an apartment? Do you live in a house? Do you have a yard? Are you willing to make that effort to do what it needs to take? And a lot of people fantasize about, yeah, I'm going to get. There's an old the monkeys that was out in the '60s. The song is going to be, "I'm going to buy me a dog," and I often think of this, and I tell people this is a fantasy about being a dog owner, but you have to look deeper into that, and it's like going down to that rabbit hole. And that's one of the things I usually like to say. When you go down that rabbit hole, you're going to go zip and zap. The first thing you have to do is make sure you're going to make a commitment for the 10 or 15 years. So, in other words, if you look at this and you say, for instance, like I just said, in the 80s, you want to go out and buy a dog, chances are you've got to have a support system in case something does happen to you, that you be able to move the dog. Case in point, I had a person I knew that lived close by from us when I was in my late teens, early 20s, that had a dog. It was part terrier, and she was in her 80s, and she died, but the dog was still alive. But the consequences of this was that they had to put the dog down because that dog was really just used to them being around. And the other issue would have been that her caretaker, the dog was used to, and the dog was used to me as well. So that situation you have to take into consideration. So, for instance, if I was in my 80s, the chances of me getting a dog will be slim to none, and Slim just leaving town, because the goal is, it's not fair to that animal. And then when we talk about an animal such as that, a cat or dog, they live for the moment, they're present, they're all loving, and so they can't comprehend, or they can't rationale something. They just know something's not right, and then when that something is not right, then the issue becomes. But case in point, when you have something like that, if you got a family member that says, "Yeah, if something happens to me, will you take the dog?" But that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work out, because if something happens to you and you die, that doesn't guarantee that dog is going to be, or cat isn't going to be, even if it's a family member, going to be homeless as well, because the fact of the matter, or taken to a shelter, because the fact of the matter comes out of this is the dog or cat, going to suffer as well with a bone. So the rationale has to be that. The other issue that I was telling this person is the time and commitment to this. You've got to be willing to make the time and commitment to it. For instance, in my case of my mom, my brother lives with her as well. My mom loves animals and all that, but she doesn't want to make that commitment to a dog, and I understand that point. There again, that's a big issue. And then with me and my siblings, two people, myself and my three of us, I should say, have dogs. Two of us do not have dogs, and it's not that. It's just that doesn't mean they were a dog person or that they just don't want to make that commitment to a pet. And that really depends on that commitment. In that it's almost like I told somebody one time, once you bring a pet into life, it's like bringing into a toddler into your life, because you have to clean, feed, play, and et cetera, and take all that stuff into account. You just can't sit them in the living room like the Christmas tree and say, "Oh, isn't that pretty?" And you can take the tree down in 5 or 6 weeks. You can't do that with a pet. With a pet, you have to do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You just can't have an off day. But the upside of that is that the pet will, give you unconditional love, be there always for you, and be your friend and your companion as well. The other issue that I often talk about is the geographics. In other words, am I living in an apartment? Am I living in a house? There are some places and apartments will charge you extra money if you have a pet because of cleaning, especially apartments. And if you have a house, do you have a yard that's suitable for the pet? And does the pet fit your things? Then you add in, when we talk about that kind of environment, I also like to put in if you've got kids, if you've got other people living in the house, you've got to take all that stuff into consideration when you have a pet. You can't just take it. Like I said, I think what happens, and that's why we see a lot of dogs that are pets. I shouldn't just say dogs, but pets in general. Every once in a while you'll hear about a reptile being found in a river somewhere up in the northern states, like an alligator or a lizard or something. And what happens, or a big, huge snake, what happens is the pet has got out of control at the time they got it. They thought, oh, this is cute, this is nice, but eventually the pet becomes uncontrollable and they just they take it somewhere and let it loose, which is a disservice to the animal. And it's not fair to that animal that it has to coexist in. Because it's just like throwing somebody out on the street, and what you're instantly doing with a cat, dog, or some kind of other pet that you have to take into consideration all this geo-presence about that. For instance, if I lived within an inner city, I would have to make sure that the place said you can take a dog, be able to walk it a couple times a day, 2 or 3 times a day, and be able to make that commitment. You just cannot let it cooped up all day and then expect that to happen. And the last thing I want to talk about is the breed of animals too. Case in point, some animals are more energetic than others, say like an Aussie Shepherd compared to a Maltese. A Maltese or one of the dog like that, for instance, tend to be more of a house type of dog or a lap dog. But then you talk about an Aussie Shepherd who tend to be more energetic. When I have to be playing, they have to be like hurting something in their mind. So if you had an Aussie Shepherd in an apartment and only walk it 1 or 2 times a day, you're doing a disservice to that pet, because it's out of its element and not necessarily doing this. So these are some food for thoughts when I'm talking about, and I carried this on about pets, but I wanted to add a little bit more about pets, that you have to take all this into consideration, and just, you can't glorify or fantasize that, say, oh yeah, let me go out and get a puppy, because that puppy turns into or a kitten turns into a full-fledged grown pet, and you have to take all that into consideration. Anyway, these are some food for thoughts. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Also, I do have books available. The latest one I'm working on right now is called Abundance, but I also have one I published last fall called Water Quality on the Reservation. All these books are available on Amazon under either B. Thomas Miller or Boyd Miller. They're all ebooks as well. They're great gifts, Father Day's gift, Mother Day gifts, etc. Also, if you have any comments, please reach out to me at bthomasmillerpsych@gmail.com. Anyway, folks, hope you have a great day, and we'll try to talk to you real soon. Enjoy your week. Talk to you real soon. Bye.